Hi, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the 10/11 meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. We meet every Thursday at 7 p.m. UK time. My name is Katie and I'm a recovered addict. This meeting will be audio recorded and made available to listen back into the 10 and 11 audio library, which is in our 10 and 11 WhatsApp group. The link will be posted in the chat. Tradition 5 states each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the addict who still suffers. Please could you join me in a few moments of silence to remember the still suffering addict, both inside and outside of the rooms. Thank you, guys. A special welcome to any newcomers or visitors with us, or those coming back after a time away. If you would like to say hello, please do so in the chat. In the spirit of Tradition 6, CA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, and as such does not endorse and is not affiliated with any of the specific technology providers utilised to facilitate this meeting. In keeping with Tradition 1, our common welfare should come first, and personal recovery depends on CA unity. Please be mindful of this on screen and also in the chat. So we've got some readings coming up. Bear with me. Cocaine Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from their addiction. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using cocaine and all other mind-altering substances. There are no dues or fees for membership, and we're fully self-supporting for our own contributions. We're not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. We do not wish to engage in any controversy, and we neither endorse nor oppose any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay free from cocaine and all other mind-altering substances and to help others achieve the same freedom. We use the 12 steps of recovery because it has already been proven that the 12-step recovery program works. Janie, are you back in yet? Nope. Okay, I'll carry on. So step 10 promises: we've ceased fighting anyone or anything, even alcohol, for by this time sanity will have returned. We'll seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recall for him as the hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude towards liquor has been given with us without any fault or effort on our part. It just comes. This is the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We're neither cocky nor afraid. That is our experience, and that is how we react as long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So it's recommended in CA that you go to as many meetings as possible and you get a sponsor. A sponsor is someone who's been through the 12 steps as outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and go through the 12 steps. If you are available for sponsorship, then can you please put your number in the chat? So, Tradition 7, every CA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. Please only give what you can. We are grateful for any contribution, but your presence here is more important. And 10 and 11 details for Tradition 7 will be posted in the chat. Thank you, guys. So the format of the meeting is we've got two speakers, one who will come and share on step 10 and one on 11. Then our speakers will have a 10-minute discussion with each other around steps 10 and 11. So guys, welcome to Thursday's 10 and 11 meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. Step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. It is now pleasure that we introduce our first speaker. Is it Sherri or is it Paula?
It's me.
Lovely. So our first speaker, Sherri, who's going to share for around about 20 minutes on step 10. So Sherri, it's over to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Katie. Thank you for jumping in there. I love how God just works things out. I don't know what's going on with the technical difficulties, but man, we rise, don't we? We just do what's in front of us to do, and we show up. My sponsor calls that sober feet. I'm Sherri. I'm an addict. I asked Paula. I had to call Paula this morning because I was crying. Because I found a puppy 2 days ago that was abandoned, and he's too much work for me. I have a 90-pound dog, that is a lot of work and requires a lot of time and a lot of attention. And he's also still very young, so he's very jumpy. And I called her this morning crying because I want to keep the puppy and I can't. And, and I called her because she understands about the animal thing and the love in our hearts for animals. And it's profound to be understood. And that's what I got when I came to this program. Because I always walked around in my life and I said, no one gets me. No one understands me. And I get here and you guys understand me. And man, that's the greatest relief of all, to be understood, And so step 10 and 11, I don't think that I'll ever be able to talk about step 10 and 11 without saying, when people say I live in step 10, 11, and 12, I cringe. And I say that because for me, remember, these opinions are based on the individual and does not represent AA as a whole. For me, step 1, 2, 3 are very, very important, because what I do is I forget that I'm powerless and I run around in your lives and I go injecting power where I don't have any. And I try to tell you what to do and I try to tell you what I think and I try to, all these and I forget that the reason my life is unmanageable is because I manage it. And I forget that belief is not reliance. I can believe in God all day long in step 2, but it doesn't mean I rely on God. And that's step 2 and 3 for me. And so I really have to go back there a lot. I'm also a little bit different in step 10. I'm going to tell you about that. And I honestly have no idea what Paula thinks about step 10. So we may be complete opposites. You know how they say, take what you want and leave what you don't. For me, step 10, it says it's growing. Our next function is growing in understanding and effectiveness. And so for me, what that means is I'm growing in understanding about myself. I understand more about myself today. My sobriety date is 2/2/02. And I understand more about myself today, and I understand more about the God of my understanding, because like I said, I used to believe in God, and see, for me, I thought that was the deal. I just have to believe in God, right? But it's not, man. It says I have to rely on God. And for me, what that means is back off. And so step 10 for me is about growing in understanding and effectiveness. Effectiveness means being of service to others, but it also means being effective in my own life. Like, Sherri, you cannot have another puppy because you cannot afford him, and because it is too much work and your life is quickly becoming unmanageable after 2 days, and so really that's effective, because how can I best serve thee if I'm trying to let this puppy drag me around? You see what I'm saying? It's even in those simple things that I have to realize, what is the best way for me to be effective? Because that's God's deal for me, is to be effective. I'm going to tell you, I've been sober 23-ish years. I have never, ever done a written 10 step. The big book does not tell me to write it down anywhere, and I've never done it, and I don't want to do it. And this is my 10 step. When I lay down with my soul and my God at night, what I say is, it's been a good day, God, thank you. Or, it's been a good day, God, I didn't do so good with that. Please help me next time. Thank you. That's what I do. And I do that because I don't think it's in God's will for me to sit there and write down a bunch of bad stuff I did all day. And believe me when I tell you, when the 12 and 12 talks about a spot check inventory, that's what I do. Because when I'm a jerk, I notice it right away. When it says continue to take personal inventory, as soon as I'm a jerk, I take my personal inventory. I'm like, dang, man, I did not want to do, because it's not who I am anymore, right? It's still what I do, because I'm human and I'm practicing these principles. I'm never going to be perfect. I like to think, don't be so arrogant to think that you're not going to mess up, And so I do the spot check inventory, or when I'm absolutely crazy in my mind, I have to call someone. Tradition 9 talks about service boards and committees. Well, I have service boards and committees for myself, because I have to get on the phone with somebody, because I don't like insanity anymore, guys. I don't like crazy anymore, and I can go from 0 to 100 in an instant. And so I have to call somebody right then and there. I don't wait till the end of the night, and I'm sure not going to write it down, because here's what it is. The kid at Walmart's on his phone and he won't help me. I ask him where something is and he goes like this, it's over there, and he just waves his hand. Oh, well, it just all unfolded. Apparently he doesn't know who I am. That's number one. Number two, he needs to have more integrity and actually work at work. Okay. You're not supposed to be on your phone at work. Put it away. You see, this is where I come in and I'm like the boss of everybody. This is where I go injecting power where I have no power. And so I yelled at him. I popped off at him. And then I walked away. So now what do I have going on here? I've popped off at him. Now I'm ashamed. Now I feel guilty. Now I'm afraid that I got to tell somebody. I have to tell on myself. And so what started out as one character defect, I now have a list of 7. Okay. So I got to go find the guy, man. I got to go find the guy. And I didn't go find the guy to tell him what I thought. I went and found the guy to say, hey, man, I apologize. I should not have, acted that way with you. And, and that's the thing. And there's a difference between apology and amends, and that required an apology for my behavior. Another step I know. But the thing is, guys, is that I'm not going to sit down and wait all night and write that down. And, and 10, 11 are intertwined. So I am going to talk about both. For me, the thing is about step 10 is that here's what's special to me about step 10. In the 12 and 12, it says we do a balance. We look at what was good today, what was right today, what did I accomplish today? And even if today I tried something and completely failed at it, it's still something good because I tried. When Clancy was doing a workshop, he was talking about winners, and somebody asked him on the panel, what do you think, what do you define as a winner? And he said, a winner is anybody who's currently trying. And so that's what's required of us, is just to try. And so it says in the 10 step, in the 12 and 12, man, even if you tried something today and it failed, it's still good because you tried. Here's my assignment for people I sponsor for the 10th step. Write 3 to 5 good things that happened today. Not good things that you did today, because it's not a to-do list. It's a good things that happened today. Somebody sent me one last night and he said, I held my son's hand when he was afraid. And I said, well, that's something you did. What was the experience? And he said, I connected with my son. That's a good thing, man. That's a good thing. Because I think what I know, my experience of myself and working with other people and knowing, I beat myself up too much. Man, my first sponsor, the first words out of his mouth was, and it was every single day, guys, put the rubber hose down, kid. Stop beating yourself up. Do you know, one day somebody said to me, I said something and she said, oh, honey, that's not the voice of God. Man, I didn't know that. I had a really small God when I came here. It was a shaming, condemning, punishing New York Italian Catholic God. I had to get on my knees. I was like a year and a half sober, and I had to get on my knees and fire that God. Because they told me my God was too small. It never occurred to me that I could have a bigger God. And so I don't want to walk around beating up the kid that this creator, I really love Gus. I do say God, but I also love Gus, G-U-S, great universal spirit. And I talk to Gus and God and I say, hey, Gus, what's up? I need more money this week. Can you help me with that? Hey, Gus, what's up? I'm really sad about this puppy and I need to cry and call somebody. He said, call Paula. Hey, Gus, I need some help with this puppy. They're wearing me out. I work 2 jobs. I can't be walking 2 dogs all day. And Gus said, here you go. Let me send you this neighbor. This neighbor offered to walk the other dog today. See, that's the way it works out. Because I'm looking for the good. I'm looking for the help. You know what? One of my most said prayers is thank you for the help. And I don't even make a list, man. But I used to whine and I used to be a victim. There's a word, right? I never knew I was a victim, but boy, oh boy, whining, crying, complaining, puking, moaning. Ooh, that's a tough one, man, to hear I'm a victim, but I really was. And then you guys said it's about a solution. There's only one step that mentions alcohol, man, or CA using. Only one step. The rest is spiritual in its nature. Okay, so I am going to flip to 11 a little bit because those questions kind of roll over into step 11. and it talks about, did I do this and was I this and was I all that? Was I kind and loving toward all? God, that probably is the answer. Probably is going to be every day. No, not to them, but maybe in my head. I'm on a meeting today at work and I'm like, oh my God, they are so boring. I wish they would just get this over with, so that's not kind and loving. But I'm not going to sit here and write all that down every single day. That's not the voice of God, man. God is not shocked by my judgment, okay? Hi, Ada. Hi, baby. Yeah, God's not, and so I'm not going to sit and write all that down, and I'm not going to look at that, and I'm not going to focus on that. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't matter, and I'm not saying that I shouldn't step up. But let me tell you something. I had somebody scream at me one day like she was absolutely bat blistered crazy, and I turned around and walked away. And what I said was, you are so impressive, God. Because the New York Italian in me came out with my dukes and wanted to whip around and give it right back to her. And I turned around and walked away, and that blew my mind, because that's not me. That's God. That's God. And you know what I did the next? I said, man, she must be really having a hard day. She must really be having a hard day. And I said, God, please bless her and give her whatever she needs. Because in step 11, it says we ask all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need. It doesn't say ask for this, that, or for the other. So I don't ask for anything anymore. I ask God, give me what I need, because I don't even know what I need. And if I pray for you, I say, God, give them what they need, because you know what they need and I don't. I don't know what anybody needs. And that's what it says in step 11. It says, give them give us what we need as we go through the day. This conscious contact thing, sometimes I'll set the reminders on my phone and it'll just say God, and it'll go off, and then I'll set it again and I'll just stop and take a breath. Meditation. Here's meditation for me. If you want to do it with me, say your own name, close your eyes. Don't do it if you're driving, listening to the recording, or here. But if you want to close your eyes and do a little meditation, inhale God, God in, Sherri out, God in, Sherri out. But I got to tell you something, guys. By the time we get around here to step 11, I feel like I have enough God consciousness in me where today I can breathe God in and God out. I feel like I can reflect that. Sometimes, not all the time. Don't get me wrong. That's a meditation. And sometimes we make too hard of terms. God doesn't make too hard of terms. My favorite line in step 11, I'm going to tell you, we relax and take it easy. I think we try too hard. I think we're writing this and doing that. And yes, this is an action program. And yes, it is how it works, not how it feels. But man, I got to drop the oars and trust the stream to carry me sometimes. Because I have this tendency to paddle upstream and sponsor myself and think I should do this and I got to do that and I got to do the other. And all that is control. And it's belief and not reliance. I believe that God would want me to do these things, but if God wanted me to do those things, it would mean I'm not relying on God. God does not need my help, man. For me, reliance on God is back off. Taking it easy, relaxing is back off. Just do what's in front of me. It is an action program. And sometimes I forget that surrender is an action. Sometimes I forget that waiting is an action. And it says if I'm faced with indecision, we ask God. That's one of my prayers if I have a decision to make. God, decide for me. Not with the puppy, though. I'm like, God, I'm not keeping this puppy. I'm too old. I'm too tired. I'm not keeping this puppy. So I didn't say, God, decide for me. I said, God, take him. Get him to somebody else. But when that dog was out there on the street after somebody dumped him yesterday, I said to God, what do you want me to do? Am I supposed to just leave him here? And God said, no. And so I took him in, but somebody else would take care of him. See, I'm not God. I can't keep them all. I can't save them all. I do my part and I have to leave the rest. And that's why I call Paula, because it makes me sad. You know, it's sad. And I want to help them all and save them all. But you know what? When people call me about their husbands, their wives, their brothers, their sisters, their kids, you know what I say? They're God's, not yours. Same for that puppy, guys. That puppy is God's, not mine. You know, I got to quit playing God. It doesn't work. There isn't a ton of time to do any particular 11-step stories, and I have a lot of them. But the thing is, I'm going to share some prayers. One of my prayers is, God, please soften me. I say that because I came here very hard-headed and very hard-hearted. And when I ask God to soften me, I believe it opens up my heart and it opens up my mind. See, it says new ideas. It says old ideas, new ideas. In step 5, it says we're going to have a new relationship with our Creator. Part of the 9th step promises say a new freedom and a new happiness. See, it says a new. It doesn't say a better version of the old. And so when I say, God, please soften me, I'm open to the new things. I can't see, hear, feel, or believe the new things if I'm stuck in the old things. Or if I'm hard-hearted or hard-headed, if I think things should go a certain way. I had a sponsee today send me the flyer to this meeting because I really, really try not to advertise myself. But she likes to come, and I didn't even send it to her. She sent it to me, and I said, oh, you're adorable. I guess I'll see you there. And she said, no, I have to work, and I don't like that. I want to come. And I said, well, did you pray for God's will today or not? And she's like, well, that's why you're my sponsor. I said, they recorded, it'll be okay. But she said, I want. And see, what happens for me when I want is I get mad and I get upset when I don't get my way. And then I lose conscious contact because then I'm back in self. You know? One of my favorite things to say is peace is still. Because I can get off in chaos. I got to do this, I got to do that. And that's what these past couple days is. I got to go walk that puppy. I got to walk this dog. I got to feed that puppy. I got to do this dog. And I'm working 2 jobs, man. And I'm like, all right, God, we're headed right back into unmanageable territory here. You know? I remember I had a sponsee call me to tell me about something. And he said, I just asked God to be with me. I said, don't ask God to be with you. Affirm that God is with me. God is with me. God is with me, because God is a fact, not a feeling. Just because I don't feel connected to God doesn't mean I'm not connected to God. When I'm having an issue in a relationship, if it's a small argument or a large argument, or if it's just somebody who's at work who's getting on my nerves, I always forget that they're people too. I pray, God, please enter my relationship with Olivia and bless it for me. Bless it for me. Because again, I don't know what that relationship needs. And I always try to get in there and control things because I want to feel better, right? You know, they talked about people pleasing. I don't people please. I try to appease so that I feel better. You know, it's like, shut up. I want to feel good, you know? And that's just the truth of it. But it's not like that today. You know, unconscious contact for me is just acknowledging that God is there. It doesn't have to be this big go sit down. I remember somebody we were at a gathering and she was saying, yeah, I'm going to grab my book and I'm going to go down to this creek at this certain place. And it's about an hour away. And I'm going to sit down and write my 4th step. And I go, and this is a little rude, I'm not going to lie, but if you know me, you'll be okay with this. And I said, or you could just grab your book and a pen and sit down at your kitchen table. You know, it's not as big as it used to be. The other prayer I pray is, God, empty me of me and fill me with thee. I do this before I share anywhere because I don't want to talk here, guys. I want it to be God coming through me. My grand sponsor says we have to widen the channel. If I'm going to be a channel of thy peace, I got to widen the channel and I got to keep the channel clear. And that's through the process of these steps and the inventory processes. That's all I have right now. I love you guys. Janie, thank you so much. I'm glad you're back. Katie, thanks for stepping up, and everybody who's taken the meeting. Paula, I love you, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Beautiful. Thank you, Paul. Sherri, Paula, I'm now going to welcome you in.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna have, is that the intro music or the outro music? Either way, it's awesome. Paula Parton, alcoholic. I just want to say that Sherri didn't mean to mess up the surprise, but Ralph, you're getting a dog for Christmas. I'll be, get ready. My sobriety date is October 29th, 1979. I'm so happy my friend Sherri asked me to do this. There's nothing I'd rather talk about than the 11th step. And I don't know why. It just hit me to start here. I'm going to say it was God because I did pray because I only have 20 short minutes. But I'm going to read this 3 sentences from Bill's story. It's when Bill was trying to, of the 100,000 times he was trying to get sober and failing. And his old friend Ebby gave him a call. And Ebby told him a bizarre thing that Ebby had stopped drinking. And Bill's like, well, come on over. Because, Bill was going to be drinking and having fun, talking about the old days. And so here's what Bill wrote later in his story. The door opened and he stood there, fresh-skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. What had happened? Now, I know if Bill could go back and take the small s in the word something and make it a capital S, he would be able to answer his own question about what just had happened to his old college friend and drinking friend, Ebby. And as I look through all the step work I've done to this day, I mean, if I don't drink in a couple of weeks, I'll celebrate 46 years of sobriety, fingers crossed. But meditation has actually been a part of every step I've taken because it's required reflection and calm and listening and prayer. Even if I didn't know it was a prayer, man. I mean, I got you savage and brain damaged and more crazy and feral. And you said this God word, and I said that might be good for you, but I beg God for help. There ain't no God. There ain't no God. And if there is, I want nothing to do with that. But you were so beautiful. There was something about you I'd never seen before. You had more than something to transmit. Just how you freaking sat, just how you smiled, just how you told the truth, and most particularly how you lived the entire 23 hours of your life outside of that meeting where you spoke so well. I have a mental health disorder. It doesn't belong in a meeting, but the only reason I'm saying it to you is because the actual medical, from the medicine, from the doctors and the scientists who diagnosed me, the answer for the mental health disorder I have is meditation. How about that? How about that? And how lucky did I get, man, growing up in that, that the only thing wrong with me is I have some tics and, I have some anxiety that comes and it goes and it comes and it goes and I don't even care. I have fake blonde hair, green eyes, and tics. Oh, well, I can still help people. It does not matter. It used to mean everything. It means nothing, man. It's just, I can still help people because I stay in this. I stay in this, man. And you're right. Your sponsor, as you know, is my grand sponsor. She does say we have sober feet. I know the actions to take. And it's taken a lot of meditation in a lot of different times. And because it starts with the word, that step starts with the word sought. It's an action. It's a continued. It doesn't say we used to seek. We sought. So I'm always looking and open for new ways to meditate, for new prayers. My always stand by, if nothing's really hitting me, is the St. Francis prayer, which is on page 99 in our 12 by 12. And for a whole year, I meditated on nothing but that prayer. And then for the whole year after that, I meditated on nothing but that line, to love rather than be loved. And I was lucky enough a little over a year to go to a CC and with my sweet sponsor and put some of the ashes of her beloved Dave at the Basilica of St. Francis. And I'm telling you, I don't know if I mean, I don't know if it's a holy place because of the saint or if it's a holy place because so many people have gone in there in prayer and belief. I mean, I have felt the exact same way standing in front of Winchester Cathedral, in front of the gravestone. If you've been there, and there's that Bill Wilson wrote about, and there's two. If you've been there, there's two foot-sized, worn out places in the grass in front of the gravestone, because so many of us have stood there. That's a holy place too, man. There's a grotto outside the main piazza in Albuquerque. I mean, grotto made out of dirt, and people are, it's all candled up, pictures of children, but it's probably the holiest ground I've ever stood in, because people have gone there in desperate belief, man. And haven't we too? C.S. Lewis probably wrote it best, man. He said, we are never loved more than when we stand upon a mountaintop, looking round upon a universe from which every trace of God seems to have vanished. Ask why we have been forsaken and still obey. I call these steps, I mean, it's true. People call them different things, maintenance steps, whatever, growth steps. I call them grow the hell up steps, whatever. I mean, I got to do them. I want to do them. One of the last fear inventories that I did was when my oldest son was still drinking, and what I wrote about the fears that my son will die of alcoholism. And I had to be in meditation because I had to be able to hear God and feel me and write the truth, so it could be lifted to the light, and God could work God's magic mouth and turn it into life-saving measures. And why can't I let it go? Why did I hold on to that fear? Because I was afraid the pain would kill me. And what I realized in meditation was that what I had been doing all that time is I had been I thought I was prepaying on the pain. That if I was already crying about it, I was already working it through, what if, that if the worst happened, it wouldn't take me out. I was pre-controlling something that hadn't even happened. And when I asked in the last, God, what would you have of me? Here's the word I got: be alive. And there it was. Meditation and prayer help me to live right here. Right here. And the question that I know is this, I don't know about you, I'm old, but, and many shocking things have happened. People have died out of nowhere. Terrible things have happened out of nowhere. And every day is a shocking gift. And I will not lay my head on the pillow tonight having regretted anything I did or should have done and did not do. I'm not doing it. If this is the last day I have to be alive, it's going to be great. I'm going to love even when it's hard. I'm going to be kind even when I don't want to be. I'm going to include even when I don't want to. And I can only do that if I do this work that we are talking about right now. And it's I remember being almost up to 20 years sober and being at a conference. I think it was Butch M talking, and he was just, talking about how, great his recovery is, and it is great. But I remember, because I was still hiding in the dark. I was still keeping secrets. I wasn't telling you about the doom of the dark that would come from me. I wasn't telling you about how bad the tics were or how my anxiety was off the charts. I wasn't telling you. I was acting like I could quote the big book at you. Not helpful, by the way. But I remember hearing him, and I remember thinking to myself, because his recovery is, and how he was talking about it was so beautiful. I remember thinking, I'm not going to make it. 20 years sober. I thought, I don't know this recovery. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know this 11th step he's talking about. So I had to jump in, man, because I am not going to waste this opportunity. I mean, our pain almost killed us. Are we just going to throw it away? Or are we going to take it, work it through the magic formula of these steps? So God, the mathematician of the whole stratosphere, can take it and turn it into beautiful things. As it says on page 124, cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession we have. There was this guy who was interviewing Mother Teresa back, of course, when she was still alive in Calcutta, and he had followed her around for 2 weeks. He was a journalist, watching her serve the poorest of the poor, which was her mission. And one of the missions of that sisterhood was to teach the Hindi women how to not have their newborns die of malnutrition. And it's surprisingly easy formula. Actually, it's not a readily available things, surprisingly, for such a third world nation. But so it's the last interview. The journalist is sitting in front of Mother Teresa and for the wrap-up interview, and it's like he says, look, I followed you guys around for 2 weeks. I've watched you talk to new mother after new mother after new mother, giving them this simple formula to not have their newborns die, and yet they are still dying. You are not succeeding. And Mother Teresa leaned forward and she patted him on his knee and she says, I see you don't understand. I was sent to serve, not succeed. When I know that I am the servant of God, I'm a frontline soldier. I am not a captain. I'm not a leader. I'm not an admiral. I'm just showing up for my duty station that day. And the most biggest example I had of that wasn't that long ago. There was a poor young man begging for money, God bless him, in front of a church in Rome. And it was one of the days that I was, begging God to save my sons. And I went in and I, on my knees begging God to save my sons from alcoholism. And I came out, and I'm embarrassed to say this. I walked right past that young man. I'm ashamed to say. And I didn't go 2 steps before I stopped. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I turned around and got down to his level, because that's the experience, strength, and hope. Gave him a moment of humanity and respect and compassion and money to help him whatever step he needed next. And what I realized is this, is that I cannot beg God to save the lives of my sons and then walk right past another mother's son. And I think I would not have known that if I hadn't just been in that church begging God for the exact same thing. That man, because somewhere in the whole world, that boy had a mother too. And since I'm the one who showed up for duty that day, it was obviously my duty station. And I could not save my own sons, but I could sure reach hers. And that would have to do. And like I said, every step has required meditation and reflection and prayer and listening and being still. And probably none more than my 4th step, every single 4th step. And I needed to find forgiveness, and I wanted it for myself, and I wanted freedom and peace for myself. And the only way I could do that was to put myself in the shoes of others. I had to look at it from their viewpoint. And what I realized for the mother in her own alcoholism, because she had a liquid power in charge of her, same as we did, is that she did save me. She did save me. I was always angry at her. Why didn't she save me when I woke her up to tell her what had happened? She just threw me away. Why didn't she save me? She did save me. She just couldn't save me that night. That's all. When I married my first husband, Boy Meets Girl on AA campus, everybody said, don't marry him. Married him. And he started pushing me into walls, and please remember, I married him. I did that. I was the grown up on the ground, and I did that. And I would call my mom, who'd been beaten and other things by my father for 17 years, and I'd call my mom. I'd say the new horror of the day that he had done, and my mother began to finish my sentences, and I'm like, oh. And so I finally got to pick up my newborn sons and leave that man. She did save me. And God was with me all the time. God was with me every night stuff went down. Every night stuff went down. And God was just saying to me, hold on, daughter. I am sending Alcoholics Anonymous. And saving me was going to have to be up to God and Alcoholics Anonymous and all the beautiful light that has come from those two things. One of my sponsees is a beautiful, gorgeous, inside and out Native American woman, and she has been teaching me that practice, the practices of her people. And one time I said, oh, I'm trying so hard to do this breathing meditation, and I've been trying for 45 years and I still don't have it down. She says, do this, just listen to the birds. And it sounds so simple, but it's been so beautiful to just sit and listen to that. And because here's what I know, that God blesses the willingness. God blesses the seeking. And sometimes, man, we do this work and I know I do this work and I expect an answer right now or a relief right now, but God's in charge of time, man. God holds the copyright on time. I did not invent time. God's going to have to be in charge of time and when and all that stuff happens. I mean, the first time I ever wanted to live, I was 4 years sober. The first time I got the will to live, I was 7 years sober. And none of it had to do with in an AA meeting. But it all had to do with what I was working and doing because of what I learned, because of the steps that I learned, because of the prayer and meditation. And all it took was this. The beginning of the beginning was me saying, maybe. And God can do something with that. There's this beautiful place in the middle of France. And on the floor of this weird, hard to get to cathedral is a labyrinth. And people have been walking the pathway of that labyrinth for 1,200 years. And I walked the path of that labyrinth. And the point is to get to the middle and lay down what it was you entered as with a burden as. But as I walked it, the burden changed. And it was almost as if every step I took, the burden I thought was my burden wasn't even what it was. The burden was that I was only thinking about myself as usual. As usual. So this work is what gives us something to transmit. That's the point. I mean, I thought the point was happy, joyous, and free. Good luck. If that's your point, man. My point, what I have learned, is service is my point. Connection is my point. And what happens is I do those things and I look back, I go, oh, happy. Oh, joy. Oh, that was freedom. The gift comes from giving. And when I was new, man, I'm telling you, many times the very best I could do was lie on the floor and be sober. And in those days, that was a miracle too. I'm going to end pretty soon. And I just want to say that there's a lot of really, helpful things. Like there's these great apps. I use Insight Timer. It's a really great app on my phone. I'll say thousands of meditations, but I'm sure there's tens of thousands of meditations at this point on that app. I use a different one every day. I share them with sponsees and friends. Sometimes we do them together. I'm just going to say a few more things that, so this is the place where the question that overran my life changed. The question had always been, what about me? Or why not me? And this is the place where I saw the change, that it changed from those questions to this, how can I help? And changing the question to how can I help changed everything else. It doesn't matter what about me. How can I help? That was particularly helpful when I began being sponsored by my sponsor now. almost to the day I got to her, her husband's health just started going down fast and they needed help. And I don't work. I'm in a good position. I'm a little bit bossy. And so how can I help? And it was this beautiful cosmic formula, I'm sure by God, that, I was able to fit some of those gaps. And, I'll never be more grateful that God's in charge of time, that the timing was just beautiful and perfect. And I got this son, who tried to get sober about 2 years ago. His first introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous was when Dave, my sponsor's husband, died. And you know how we show up for one another. You know how. So that was AA to my boy. And there's Polly hugging on him for 10 days. I mean, can you imagine? And then my son started feeling better, figured he overreacted, because doesn't everybody wet the bed when they're 30? Come on. So we get back home. He doesn't make it. And then a little over a year ago, he called me because he said, I can't stop drinking and my anxiety's off the chain. So last June 28th, he celebrated 1 year of sobriety. Because something. You went through a lot of work. If you are at step 10 and 11 right now, you laid it down and out. If you did not withhold on your step 5, man, you are feeling the light. And you may not even know what the light feels like, but I'm telling you, you're feeling the light. Don't stop now. It's so easy. I have my step 11 right here on a little thing. This goes, it's just the words from step 11. It's straight out of the big book. This goes where in the other room where I sit and have my coffee and have all my readings. So there's my step 11. My step 10 is at my bedside. Easy peasy. And I find that the easier things are to have handy, the better I do them, and the more likely I'm going to do them. Even if I'm tired, even if I have to get up at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning or whatever, it doesn't matter. The work matters. Because like I said, I'm not going to waste a day. I'm in the bonus round, and I'm not going to waste a day of it. I'm going to end with this, that when I was about a year sober, I was about 18 years old, and I was living in a halfway house, and I went in to see the counselor with the way many of us approach our first foray into maybe that there's a God. And I said, okay, if there's a God, why did all these bad things happen to me when I was a little girl? She said, oh, baby, God didn't make those bad things happen. Faulty and broken human will made those things happen. But now God has given you Alcoholics Anonymous to try to help you mend those things. So I am saying to you, I think you can see now that if you are having a hard time biting into this, if you're thinking, I don't have to do quite that much, or this is a little silly, or yeah, you guys are a little too on the spirit side, I think you understand now that I understand that kind of thinking. So why not do this? Take it as if it's a present for you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. And thank you, Sherri. Sorry, getting thrown out through me earlier. I will read step 11 quickly. Sort through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. I think you did that beautifully. And with that, I'm going to open the meeting back up for Sherri to come in for you guys to have your spiritual discussion on however the Spirit takes you.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Paula, I love you. That's just all I can say. I always love to hear you. And I want to tell you guys actually, so just a couple things that kind of came to mind when Paula was sharing, and Jamie just read it. Praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. That's the prayer I pray every day on my knees. I say, God, please bless me with the knowledge of your will for me today and the power to carry that out. Not my will, not my list, not my plans, not my designs. I pray that you bless me with the knowledge of your will, and you give me the power and strength to carry that out. And the reason I pray on my knees is because praying on my knees early on really worked, and it worked so well I stopped doing it. And then I heard my sponsor, who is 50 years sober today. We're having a party for her tomorrow.
Yes.
If anybody wants to come, but she's 50 years sober today. And I was listening to her. She was doing a share, and she said something about they told her in the beginning to get on her knees. And I said, do you still get on your knees? And she said, well, sure. Nobody told me not to. And I said, well, I need to get up back on my knees. And God doesn't need me on my knees. I need me on my knees. I need me on my knees to remind me that I have a higher power. And the other thing, guys, I really want to say this because I think it's so important. I remember in my first few years, a lot of years, I'd call my sponsor and I would complain about everybody at work, and I would just say, he did this and she said that, and oh my God, the doctor went off and blah, blah, blah. And it was everybody around the office. And then at the end of it, I can't even believe he let me go on, but at the end of it, I just said, and I'm so exhausted. And he said, well, no wonder you're exhausted. Self wears you out. Man. It says in the 11th step, we do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. When I back off and I pray for the knowledge of God's will for me instead of self-will, I'm not tired anymore. And I got to tell you this, guys, when anybody calls me, and anybody, I don't have to be their sponsor, I can just be on their service board or committee. If anybody calls me and they're in that obsessive thinking and those obsessive, that drive to figure things out, you know what I say? Aren't you tired? And the answer is always yes. And so I really love that about step 11 is I just don't get as tired anymore. I want to tell you guys quickly how I met Paula. I was asked to do a big book study, the first 164 pages for a group, and they said I can bring a guest speaker along if I wanted each week or just do it on my own or whatever I wanted. And so I had actually asked one of Paula's sponsees to join me one of the weeks, and she got sick. And her sponsor, Paula, said, oh, no, baby, you take care of you and I'll do it. And I had never even met Paula before. I'd never heard her before. I never met her before. And we just flowed, and it just felt like magic and love to me. And now I say man all the time because Paula's a fabulous musician and she's so cool. And I tell her when I grow up, I want to be just like you, man. So ever since then, we've been friends and we share love, and I call her. She's now on my service board and committee. Isn't she lucky? Wink, wink. But, I got to tell you guys something. So this is the way this thing with God works, right? She's somewhere else in the world and we've never met live and in person. And next week she's going to be here in Tennessee. And the only difference is I just get to hug her body because this is truly the fellowship of the Spirit. And I already love her. And the only difference when I see her live and in person next week is I get to hug her body. Thank you guys. Paula.
Oh. So I think it's always important to say that, we do this work, so God-centered, and that the God of our own, each unique understanding. But I think it's really important to know and to understand God doesn't need our prayers. We're not asked to pray or strongly suggest to us that we pray because God requires our prayers. God's doing just fine. God already knows what we need. We require our prayers. That's the point. And I don't think I have more spiritual, grand awakenings. What I have, I think, are spiritual rememberings. Because I come into the world with God, I'm going to go out of the world with God. That's it. There's one relationship that matters, and it's that relationship, my relationship with God. And more than any other thing that pops up the most on my nightly inventory is that I sought for someone's approval. I was free of it for a while, but that's the one that creeps back in. And I decided way back when I did a step 2 and 3 to that question, is God everything or is God nothing? I made the decision for me that God is everything. So what I'm doing as I'm doing this work, pulling forward, is I'm just reminding myself who I said was everything. That's all. I reminded myself that I already made that decision. So I got to remake it. I already made the decision. And if you're still looking for what this higher power could be for you, just write 7 words of what your higher power, just yours only, needs to be in order for you to turn your whole will and life over to that higher power. I did that once with a room of 36 people, and not one of us had the same 7 words. How about that? That's how important it is to understand that it says, as I understood him. And then C.S. Lewis, I know I'm bringing him up today a lot, but he wrote another thing, and it was about kneeling when you pray. And I read this so long ago, I was probably 3 years sober, but he wrote, human beings only are, after all, animals. And what our bodies do affects our souls. God doesn't require me on my knee. I require. And why is because it's different from where I just was a minute ago. If I want a difference, I better change it all then. And plus, I'm listening. I'm always listening. Where am I supposed to sit? Do I have a pillow on my lap or not? And it might be silly, but it's not. Because what I'm doing at every point is at least trying to listen to a higher something. And God also will bless the willingness of listening. That's all I have.
Sherri? Cool. Wow.
Good,
Thank you,
thank you.
ladies. Thank you. Thank you so, so much. Honestly, absolutely beautiful. It is now the Q&A part of the meeting where you guys can come in and ask the speakers any questions relating to steps 10 and 11 or what you have heard. Please, could you be mindful to keep to questions only during this part of the meeting. So let's see some hands. I'm sure someone's got some questions for Paula or Sherri. I know I have. Come on, don't be shy now, people. Any questions? A good question. Okay, well, I'll ask a question to both you ladies, and thank you so much,
Thank you.
My question is when I was around 8 years in, I went through some massive upheavals, and I was so disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally to the point of where I wanted to take my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And I came out of this, and what I did was I set a timer on my phone, and it started off every 15 minutes, where it would literally just say things like, check your thinking, thy will, not mine, be done, to remind me to reconnect with God. I was just going to ask both you ladies, have you ever had experience around this kind of thing? And what did you do to get reconnected to your higher power?
Okay, sorry, I just didn't want to jump in over you, Paula. I sat in a meeting at 10 years sober, and I said, I don't want to drink, I want the gun. And that's how much of my life was in an upheaval, and that was sober. And obviously it was not emotional sobriety. And, for me, that's the difference. There's a difference between dry and being emotionally sober. For me, emotional stability is dependence on God. But I got to tell you, some of you guys might know Scott L. here in Nashville, and he does a grief and anger workshop. And I did them both with him. And when I got to the anger workshop, I, honest to God, guys, was free and clear of people. I could not come up with a person to be angry with. And so I did my anger workshop on God. And it wasn't it wasn't that I was like currently angry with God. It was that I wanted to excavate the old shit of why didn't you help me more? Or why weren't you there more? Or why couldn't I feel more connected? Or, I just wanted to get all of that out, because now that I have this dependence and reliance on God, there was a part of me that thought, why weren't you there then? Like you're here now. I was homeless unexpectedly. I got kicked out of my apartment because my dog bit somebody. They gave me 3 days to get out, and it was 3 days before Christmas. 50 some years old, and I'm like 20 some years sober, and I'm homeless, man, in sobriety. And I'm like peaceful every freaking day. But there were times in my life when I was 10 years sober where I wanted to just off myself. And so to say I understand, I want to say that first. And then the other thing is I got to remember that God's cool with me being pissed at him. Her, him, Gus, great universal spirit. God's cool with that, man. God's cool with my anger. And what I know about resentment is that I got to get rid of it. So I can't always connect. How can I connect with the God of my understanding if I'm afraid? Or if I'm angry, or if I got some sex stuff going on, or that guy is my higher power, or that job is my higher power. I called my sponsor one time and I'm like, man, I just did this stupid ass thing, and these guys I know this is going to be the thing they fire me over. She said, Sherri, if they fire you, that's none of your business. Wow, I forgot. It's God's business. See, I have the disease of forgetting, and for me, I know you're going to blow up the chat with a lot of them, but the acronym for me, that's my favorite, FEAR, forgetting everything's all right. See, I forget everything's all right, and that's why I need you guys, but it's hard for me to connect with a God I'm upset with. So I got to do that first. I have to work through that first, and I have to look at, what is this affecting? So for me, that's helpful to get reconnected to God again. But I want to say this, God is a fact, not a feeling. Just because I don't feel connected doesn't mean God isn't there. It's me who leaves. It's me who gets caught up with the fear and the resentment and all the things that block me off from the sunlight of the spirit. Thanks.
Thanks. I'm going to address that real quick. Okay. So I have been wanting to die since I was 8 years old, was my first memory. And so having thoughts like that, it gets stuck in your neurons. I mean, that actually does. It's a pattern. It's a loop of thinking. It's why people say do things like a gratitude list. And think, well, that's stupid compared to how big the thought is, but it's not stupid actually, because anything to change the loop, you're actually changing the loop. But anyway, so when I was 4 years sober, I just kept telling my secrets. I just kept waiting to hear if I could hear an answer. That's all I did. I lived in AA meetings and said maybe, and didn't kill myself. And I was 4 years sober. I went in to see the first time, so it was like 1980 something. I went in to see the artworks of the Vatican. They had left some of the artworks out of the country for the first time. I walked into what I didn't know was the last room, and it was this beautiful, like 2-story tall white tent. And it was like a 10-foot long and 10 foot tall and the longer tapestry by Raphael. And it was so beautiful that I walked in the room and I went, oh, and stepped back. And my first thought was, I will live. Because it was so beautiful. And I just hoped I'd have another moment like that. And then the other time, I was 7 years sober, had already fallen in love with the big book, a sponsor that brought me through the steps. So the spiritual awakening was happening. The foundation was happening. But the thoughts, enough of a thing, and I want to die was my first thought. I got a bad test result at the doctor's. They said, you're going to have to come back in. Up to that point, I had two emotions, baffled and enraged. And so I hung up the phone and I had a new feeling. Like, oh, it's a new feeling. And it took me like a day or two to realize at 7 years of sobriety, that new feeling was the will to live. I got that just by hanging the hell around, doing part of the work. So when it says half measures avail us nothing, not true. Half measures do avail us a lot of conflict, a lot of drama, a lot of sleepless nights. But even my half measures gave me something of a will to live. Thanks.
Thank you. Claudia F., you're up first, my dear.
Hi everyone, I'm Claudia. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. Thank you for sharing for both of it tonight. I'm in my first step, but I'm trying. I'm meditating. I think. No, I'm staying on in the bed. I'm not down on my knees, but I'm just on the bed, and I know that it's my time. I have to wake up and just do it. And I wanted to ask, like, because I don't really I don't trust my mind. And whenever I hear voices or God knows what, because I still hear some stuff, I don't get it. I don't understand what's happening. And I am, last night I catch myself and I said that I'm afraid of knowing him. And I'm afraid because I'm afraid of hearing him telling me stuff, because I think if it's my mind telling me stuff, and I don't know how to differentiate this, and I don't know when it's him, when it's me, when it's, because I have voices that they play, like, I don't know, like on different voices. I don't know how to say it. And it's, yeah, I don't know. I hope it makes sense. Like, how do I know who is God and who is?
That's why you have a sponsor. You run that stuff past your sponsor. Your sponsor can help you discern that.
Okay. Thank you.
For me, and I know, same sponsor or service boards and committees. For me, what I know for sure is that God's will is easy. And if it's not easy, it's not God. I think that I also say I know it's God when I argue, because I'll hear something and I'll go, I don't want to do that. I don't want that dog that you dumped out on me, you know? And God's like, you need something to love, you know? And so it's just a matter of, and it talks about that. And being in step one is, you know, a place where you don't have to decide that today. You know, just keep coming back and it will come. It talks about an intuitive knowing by the time you get to step 10, and you will know intuitively what God's will is and what God's will is not. And as far as the voice of God and hearing God, what I know for sure is when I say things to myself like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I'm such an idiot. I know that's not the voice of God. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Claudia, for your question. Spence, you had your hand up. Have you put it down again?
I did, because Sherri and Paula just answered my question. My question was, how do you determine the voice of God or the voice of Paula and Sherri? And the lady before me just kind of asked that question. I don't have another question. Sorry.
2 for 1.
Linda, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Linda. I'm a grateful member of Cocaine Anonymous, and I've been here for years. I've worked the steps a few times with a sponsor, still in the process. I do what the big book tells us, and I'm still so tired, Paula. You just talked about it in your share. I'm still so tired, and I don't know what's wrong. I have no idea. Something, please share back what's going on.
So I feel like this requires a private conversation. Are you okay with that? Okay, I'm going to put my number in the chat to you. Is the chat open enough that I can give her my number? Yeah? Okay, awesome.
And I just want to sort of reiterate, you know, it says we do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. You know, it was hard for me to hear that I was selfish and self-centered. It really was, because I thought, Jesus, I'm the most generous, kind person I know. And it was such a lie, man. And you know what? I really do. I run around trying to arrange life to suit me because I want to feel good. I want to be at peace, and I want to love and live life. And, it was hard to look at that. And one of the things that I always say, if anybody ever asks me to sponsor that, is I say I'm direct. And people don't like to hear, we don't like to hear that we're selfish or self-centered. But Don Major, I don't know if you guys knew the lovely Don Major, but he said there are no bad days here. And if there's a bad day, it's because it's a selfish day. And so I would have to assume, again, without a private conversation, and Paul is great, and I'm also happy to talk to you, but I would assume that you're running life in self. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. And Linda, thank you for your question. Ollie, D.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. My name's Ollie. I'm a recovered addict. Thanks for your shares. So my question is, like in my first year or so, my step 10 and step 11 was like, it felt really kind of rigid and like regimented, and my sponsor said something to me, wear it like a loose garment, and that's really started to kind of make sense to me as I've kind of explored other ways of doing stuff. What are your interpretations of wearing step 10 and 11 as kind of like loose garments? Thanks.
Okay, I think it looks like I'm going first. I'm like looking at her, who's going. So 10 for me is it's like 4. There's certain questions that are asked. It ain't loose. It's certain questions that are asked, certain questions need to be answered. So, however, I'm listening for God's nudge in 10 and 11, but primarily in 11. So like I'll sit out there at where I start my day, and I have spiritual books around me, and I will actually listen for which one's for me that day, and I read it in order, but I read it slowly and intently, waiting to see what are the words for me that day. And let's say that's all just my mind. So what? It's still me trying for a higher place. And that is blessed. That is better. And where I ever got that information was in lockdown. Father Tom maybe took a whole huge group of us on Zoom through two-way prayer. So like you write with one hand your question for God, you guys all know, and then whatever you think next, you answer. And he said, what if you think, oh, that was just my head thinking that? So what? It's still you trying for a higher self. That's blessed right there. Right there is better. So 11, yeah, loose, but we got to do it. We can't like loosely think about meditating tomorrow. That's why it's called practice. I'm lazy as hell. If I can get by with not doing something, I'm going to be going that way. So I have to make it a part of what I do.
Thank you, Paula, and thank you for the question. The thing for me is that I felt like I had to do. It's kind of what I was talking about dropping the oars and trusting the stream to carry me. I paddle upstream. I got to work harder, do harder, be harder, live better, do more, do this, do that, exercise more, eat better, live better, all the things. And what I realized it was becoming a to-do list. And it was also very, very acclimated in self. It was like self directed. And so, again, I say God does not make too hard of terms. It's me who makes too hard of terms. And God doesn't require me on my knees. God doesn't require me to say certain prayers. God doesn't require me to anything. It says conscious contact, which can be anything that means to you. But the thing is, when we know better, we do better. There's no way you can do this deal and not automatically live step 10 if you've worked the 9 previous steps. We are continuing to look at ourselves. We are trying to be kinder people. Our character is growing. We are growing in understanding and effectiveness, and I got to be honest, guys, the most spiritual people I know are retired. Man, I work 2 jobs. I've got, the dog. I've got a lot going on. I'm doing this, that, the other, I've got a lot going on in my life. And so the time isn't where it used to be when I thought that I, had to do certain things in certain ways at certain times for a certain time. And that's the rigidity. And so I dropped that. And I often ask people to drop it too, because it's precipitated by self. Like, I got to do this certain list to connect. Man, that breath got in, Sherri out. That's beautiful if I can just stop and do it, And I do sort of have a ritual, but because that's the main word in spiritual. But, Sandy Beach, I feel like I'm a name dropper today, but all these beautiful people, we always say, let's have a moment of silence for the sick and suffering. I want to have a moment of silence for the people who have gone before us in appreciation, because thank God for them. But Sandy Beach said, that's all spirituality is how's it going? If that 10th and 11th step work is too hard and it's more to do on the list and you don't do it, and then you feel like a failure, and then you beat yourself up, and then you think you can't do it, and then you think you're not a good person, and then you think you're not spiritual. Jesus, there is nothing worth that, right? Because none of that's the voice of God, right? So do what you can. Do what you can. And the other thing that I tell people always is ask God about it. God, what would you have me do for steps 10 and 11? That would be easy for me, but contact with you. I always ask God, decide for me what I should do for 10 and 11. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks, Ollie, for your question. And that brings us to the end of Q&A time.